And now we have, last but not least, Alexander, who is also at the Free Software Foundation Europe, where he looks after EU public policy. He's a program manager. So over to you.
Thank you. So I hope you don't stay just for the lottery and are really interested in my talk. So this talk is about public money, public code. It's another campaign we are running, and it's about modernizing public infrastructure with free software. So first of all, why are we doing this? So we are a charity to empower users to control their technology, as we already heard, and users can be also states, administrations, whatever. So it's not just about us as individuals, but also about states and administrations. So let me explain you why it's a good idea to have free software when it comes to administration. So I guess you all are more or less familiar with the chain of command to drop a bomb. There's a president, and he has this red button, and then, the A-bomb falls. But the question is, what does the engineer really do? So if the engineer installed the red button in a completely different way than the law says, then we should know about it, and we should know about the code, because I mean it's about a bomb. So, and that's why we as citizens, but also as administrations, should know about how our administrations work when it comes to software. It's more or less similar to law. I mean, if a law is introduced, you should know about it and should be able to read it. And this is also true when it comes to software. So Richard already explained the 4 freedoms which make free software, open source software. You can use, share, study, and improve software, which means, you can use the software without any limitations or restrictions, for example, geographic limitations. You can share the software. You can also share the software with money, so you can earn money with free software, but you can also give it away for free. You can study the software, which means you can look into the code and see what the software really does. And you're allowed to improve the software, or let's say you are allowed to modify the software, so you can also make it worse, but normally people should improve software. So if these 4 freedoms are guaranteed, then it's free software. And this is a good idea for administrations to have free software, because especially for the term to study the software in terms of transparency, it's very good that we are able to look into the software and see what the software does. So why we should, or why states or governments should use free software? So it's about trustworthy systems, and public bodies must ensure that they have full control over their systems and their computer systems. And this is only guaranteed if you use free software, because this is the core of our state digital infrastructure, and we should have the power over this infrastructure. As well, our public bodies are financed by taxpayers' money, by our money, and therefore it's a good idea to spend this money in the most efficient way which is possible. And this is as well, again, true for free software, because if you buy proprietary software, you are spending money on licenses and not on the software itself. So, there are also some other good reasons to do so. If you, so normally there should be a picture, but at least there's a text, so which is still important. So if you invest in free software as a government, you also support your regional SMEs. So I will show you later on some figures on this, but your local regional SMEs can become strong partners, and your money is not wasted for licenses in Ireland or somewhere else. It guarantees your autonomy. I mean, you can have tailored software that suits your needs, and you are not you are not connected to your vendors' business models, but you can have a software which really fits your needs, and don't have to buy something which nearly fits your needs. And it's very efficient. I mean, you have a very transparent process. You can see the code. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Just imagine there's a city who needs, I don't know, something to organize streets or to organize their citizens. And this is also true for every other city. So, and if every city buys their own software product, you are wasting a lot of money, but if you work together, then you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can take the same software again, and you don't have to pay money for this, and you can work together and share your expertise and costs. Let's have a look at what problems occur when you use proprietary software like Windows, Oracle, whatever. First of all, you don't have any interoperability. I think you're all familiar with this. So if you want to send, for example, Office, a Word document to somebody else who don't own Microsoft Word, then you might up in a messy document where you can't read anything, or you can't fill out the form or whatever. So there's no interoperability between proprietary systems or two open source systems. You have these vendor logins. So once you bought a solution from a proprietary vendor, then you have to use all the other products. So again, imagine Office solutions. So normally, these days, you have like to pay every year to get or to use your Word application or whatever. And if they change something, you have to follow the changes. If you want a change in the software, you have to go back to the one vendor where you bought the software and ask them if they can make the changes. They don't have to make the changes. They can ask for very strange prices. So you are always stuck to this vendor. And so this can be very, very costly. So you have unpredictable costs and maintenance. So if you want to change something in the future, I mean, the digital area is changing very, very fast. And what you need today might be something completely different from what you need tomorrow. So that's why it's a very, very bad idea to just stick to one or two vendors. As well, we have the low acceptance by citizens because nobody knows what the software does. Maybe you have to buy something to get in contact with your administration or whatever. You have to download something in order to be able to do some e-government stuff or whatever. You have these really high investments cost, and every time you buy a license, these license costs are just wasted. And you have security issues because if you can't look into the code, you won't find backdoors. So this is more or less what Richard told us. And that's why it's a good idea to use free software because you have interoperability due to open standards. You are independent because you have free licenses. Everybody can step in and fix your software issues. You can collaborate with others. This is especially true when it comes to administration. So for example, cities can work together, ministry can work together, governments can work together and can share risk and costs. And it's very transparent by default, so which is good for our democracy. And you can involve local partners, which is good for your local economy. And you have an auditable code, which makes it way more secure than a proprietary solution because everybody can have a look in the code and can find backdoors. Let's have a look on what are the role of governments in IT sector. So governments are one of the largest purchasers when it comes to IT goods and services, and up to 27% of the revenue of software firms comes from governments. So this is a really strong buyer on the market, and so that's why you can, as governments, when you work together, make a lot of pressure in the market if you want so. And there are already a couple of countries in Europe who started to use free software, and we can see that this helps really a lot for their local environment. And so it means that, for example, in France, they started back in 2012 to introduce a law which requires to use more open source software every time you program something from the scratch. And this leads to the fact that up to 5% we see a yearly increase of companies that use free software. We see up to 18% yearly increase of number of IT-related startups. and up to 14% yearly increase in the number of individuals employed in IT-related jobs, and which is also very good that up to 16% we have less software-related patents in France. So you can see it's a major boost of your economy if you switch to free software as a government. Also, there's the city of Barcelona, which uses free software heavily, and they have a law which says 70% of their budget related to IT have to go in open source and free software projects. And this led in the last years to the fact that 3,000 companies are involved in creating software for Barcelona, and 60% of them are SMEs from the region. So if you change to free software from your government, you really invest in your local IT infrastructure. And that's why nearly 2 years ago we decided to start a campaign on this and to convince other governments, other authorities to also switch to free and open source software. And we launched this campaign called Public Money, Public Code, and it's, very easy. We want legislation requiring that publicly financed software developed for the public sector be made publicly available under a free and open source software license. So if it's public money, it should be public code as well. So this very easy campaign, easily understandable campaign is also a very successful campaign. So we are having loads of supporting organizations who help us in spreading the word. And we also have some administrations who already support us, like the city of Barcelona. There's another small village in Germany, and also the government of Asturias, this is a region in Spain, are supporting our campaign and switch to free software. We have organizations like Mozilla, OpenSUSE, April from France, and so on. It's like 150 organizations who already support our campaign and nearly 20,000 individuals. And we also released this very wonderful brochure. I have 2 more copies with me, maybe there are some outside. And this brochure was made for administrations to convince them to switch to free software and to help them. So there you can find loads of arguments why you should switch to free software. There are some legal hints when it comes to procurement procedures or something like this. And also on, practically how to do it as an administration to switch to free software. Unfortunately, it's just available in English in the moment, but we are trying to translate step by step this brochure. So if you know somebody in the administration, you can order a copy at our office. We will send you a hard copy, or there's also a PDF available on fsfe.org or publiccode.eu. And this really helps to convince administrations to switch to free software. Also, if you want to help us with translations, that would be also very good. So please just come to us, send us an email to contact@fsfe.org, or just directly get in contact with me or my colleague Galia. And then, this would be really helpful if you help us with translations, and then also get in contact with administrations. So, and if you don't want to do it yourself, we are also very happy if you give us some contacts. When you know somebody who is willing to change to free software but just don't know how, we are also willing to help here. And if you have the time of 3 minutes, I can show you a short campaign video. Do we have 3 minutes left? Yeah? Okay. Then I have a short video for you which explains the campaign as well.
Would treat our public infrastructure like our streets and public buildings, the same way it treats our digital infrastructure. Our members of parliament would work in a rented space where they weren't allowed to vote in favour of stricter environmental laws because the owner, a multinational corporation, didn't allow that kind of voting in its buildings. Nor will it allow a long overdue upgrade to more than 500 seats. This means some members of parliament have to stay outside in the street. And a couple of blocks away, a brand new gym is already being torn down just 6 months after it was built. It's being replaced with an exact replica at great expense. And the only difference, The new manufacturer also provides street ball as an added feature. Meanwhile, every night through a hidden back door in the City Hall, documents that contain sensitive information on citizens, from bank data to healthcare records, are being stolen. But no one is allowed to do anything about it, because searching for back doors and locking them would infringe the signed user agreement. And as absurd as this sounds, when it comes to our digital infrastructure, things like the software and programs that our governments are using every day, this comparison is pretty accurate. Because mostly, our administrations procure proprietary software. This means a lot of money goes into licenses that last for a limited amount of time and restrict our rights. We aren't allowed to use our infrastructure in a reasonable way. And because the source code of proprietary software is usually a business secret, finding security holes or deliberately installed backdoors is extremely difficult and even illegal. But our public administrations can do better. If all publicly financed software were to be free and open source, we could use and share our infrastructure for anything and for as long as we wanted. We could upgrade it, repair it, and remodel it in any way to fit our needs. And because the open source in free software means that the blueprint is openly readable for everyone, this makes it much easier to find and close security holes. And if something practical and reliable was created digitally, not only can you reuse the blueprint all over your country, but the actual thing itself can be deployed anywhere, even internationally. A great example of this is Fix My Street. Originally developed in Great Britain as a free software app to report, view and discuss local problems like potholes, it's now being used all over the world. Everyone benefits because new features and improvements are shared by everyone. If all our software were developed like this, we could stop struggling with restrictive licenses and could start thinking about where and how software could help us. We could concentrate on creating a better society for everyone. So, if you think that tomorrow's infrastructure should be in our own hands, help us now by sharing this video and visiting our website, publiccode.eu. It's time to make our demand. Public money, public code.
Yeah.
I like that vision very much.
Thank you.
Let's see if we can make it a reality. So let's get a couple of questions for Alex, and then we're going to do the raffle and some housekeeping business.
So it's self-explaining.
Yeah, I think it did an excellent job of explaining. So I mean, clearly, but we do. I see somebody approaching the microphone.
Hello, Alex.
Hi.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Can you share with us, is there some European country which has more improvement in this direction, getting public codes for their public money, or do we have a number one and let's say so open state that has embraced this idea?
Actually, there's none which I consider on the first place, but for example, France is kind of way forward on this, Spain somehow, but it's at the moment mainly driven by cities like Barcelona, Helsinki, Paris. We have this law in France, we have a law in Bulgaria, but there's a problem in terms of enforcing these laws. So we don't have these concrete numbers like in Barcelona where they say it's 70% of the budget have to be spent on free software. There is no law like this on a national level. And this could be somehow useful to have something like this. Also, the European Union is doing more and more on this. For example, we have a FOSSA 2 project, which they started like 2 or 3 years ago, in order to support, for example, VLC or WordPress with bug bounty programs. They also started the ISA Square program in order to do interoperability or to solve interoperability issues. And they want to set up such an open source competence center. So you can see in every country some steps in the right direction, but I wouldn't say that there's a common strategy and a common goal and a common way on this. Somehow the UK is still, they are a EU member, and so they are doing a lot on open source. But still, I wouldn't say that there's one country where we should follow, and yeah, there are too many island solutions at the moment.
What about Estonia? Anything about Estonia? Because they're meant to be one of the most advanced digital nations in the UK.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the EU.
Yeah. They are somehow way forward, but I personally have some issues with data protection when it comes to Estonia, so I wouldn't consider that we just copy and paste everything Estonia does. But for sure, for example, during the Sharing and Reuse Award, they again got an award for their, I don't know what solution they had. It was like e-passport something, and so they are still very active in this field. But for example, if it comes to the Sharing and Reuse Award of the European Union, it's France, Spain, and Estonia, which are the main countries there. Then a bit of Poland, and that's it. So there's a lot of yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Yes.
And another question. First, a comment. Because all this seems very logical and practical, I think the biggest opponent of that will be some lobbies and corporations which will lose money in the end. And the second question, correct me if I'm wrong, but the municipality of Munich was very famous running open source for, I think, 10 years. And then at the end, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, they somehow lost the battle and switched back to Windows. Can you say us a little bit about that? What went wrong?
Yeah. So on the first question, sure, there will be some companies who will lose a lot of money on for example, licenses, like Microsoft will lose a lot of money if we completely change to free software, but they are still allowed to do free software. So, I mean, if there's a procurement procedure, Microsoft can step in and do as well free software. So there's nothing which says Microsoft is not allowed to step in, but it's just like do free software, open source software, and then Microsoft can do so, or Oracle, or whomever. So they still can earn money, and I think most of the money they earn is with support and maintenance, and not just about the code. So you're wasting really a lot of money just for licenses, and you can use this money to invest in really good software solutions. And then there was I don't know who was it, the question of usability of free software. So if you invest all the money which we waste on license on the usability of free software solutions, then I'm pretty sure we will have really, really good solutions which are able to use for administrations. And also, I mean, when it comes to usability, we changed a lot during the last years, so there are really good systems on the market which everybody can use. Also for office things or whatever. And the second question about Munich, so they had this Linux, which is a Linux version, which they programmed, and they migrated the whole city more or less during a couple of months or years, which was a huge project. So actually, we in our campaign suggest to do it step by step. So every time you have something new or you need some new software, then it should be free software. Don't migrate your whole system from one day to another. So do it step by step. And also in Munich, it was a political decision because the government changed there, and so that's why it was a political decision to step back and go back to Microsoft. It's always a question of lobbyism, it's of influence, and not about the solution itself. So, and that's why we also want to have strong laws, so which survive government changes, and where you have something where you can refer to. So we have, for example, the Tallinn Declaration, which all EU member states signed and the European Commission signed, where they say we want to switch to open source step by step, and we need more of these documents where we can refer to and survive these government changes and these lobby attempts to change back to Microsoft or other proprietary solutions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.